Well, there's no question that learning to say no is one of the most important skills that you and I can develop to finding personal freedom and fulfillment in our lives. Learning to say no. Imagine that every morning we start with 10 gold coins, and over the course of the day, we start to make withdrawals and deposits on those 10 coins. Now, the goal is to end the day with the 10 coins that we started with. But many of us get into negative numbers because we're making more withdrawals than deposits on our account on our 10 coins. And the primary way to protect from those kinds of withdrawals is to learn to say no. James writes, "Let your yes be a plain yes and your no a plain no." I like that. A plain yes and a plain no. It sounds easy, doesn't it? But it's not. It's hard. Whether it's a social invitation, sure, we'll be there when we know we're already jam-packed with things to do, or scheduling a golf game, and yeah, I'll play, or work time commitments. I'll do that. I'll take on that extra. You see, the problem is when we say yes, then we wonder, why did I do that? What was I thinking? I don't want to do that. I don't have the time for that. And then we begin to resent that we have to do what we said, yes, we would do. So the question is how to build the no factor into our everyday life. How to break the tyranny of unwanted yeses in our lives. You know, I've done a lot of weddings over the course of my ministry, and in the course of the engagement, I've had two couples, two women, where the women said yes to a proposal that they didn't really want to say yes to, but they were just kind of hoping, if I say yes, maybe it'll work out. Maybe things will change. Maybe this person will be the person that I'd want to marry. I just don't want to let them down. They're going to be brokenhearted if I say no. And in saying yes, that led to a last minute, right before the wedding, backing out of the wedding after all the plans have been made. Both couples had all the gifts sent to their homes to open up for their wedding day. They had to cancel the rehearsal and the wedding itself at the last minute because the woman realized she had made a big mistake by saying yes when she really meant no. So how do we learn to say no? Well, let me give you some suggestions. First, know what our core values are. I can't say no without establishing my own personal boundary lines, what I value, what I believe in, what I stand for, what's really important to me. You see, we say yes because of a lack of clarity on what's important to us and what we really value and what we want to spend our time doing. So before we say no, we have to know what it is that we want to say no to. What are my core values is the best way to figure that out. I remember reading a book on Thomas Edison called A Streak of Luck. Thomas Edison went on to invent the light bulb. His goal was, I want the whole world to be able to function under artificial light, not have to have candles or oil. To do that, he slept under his desk. His world got very small. He said no to tons and tons of things. He was so laser-like focused. He's the one who said creativity is 99% perspiration and 1% inspiration. You see, he was prepared to miss out on something to get to something else that he really believed in, that was a value of his. Saying no is saying yes to some of the things that really are important to us, that are greater to us, that are the higher values. To him, it was inventing artificial light in every single home. So say no to the lesser things so that we can say yes to the greater things. How do you do that? Know your core values. Second, learn to say, I'm not responsible for someone else's happiness. We begin to think if I say no, then that person will be disappointed, and in their disappointment and dissatisfaction, they're going to express that back to me. This happens a lot with parents. You know what this is like. You're a schedule, you're raising young kids, you're building your job, you're putting your marriage together, and you're redlining through life, and you go and you say, yeah, mom or dad, I'll come visit you every Saturday afternoon or every Sunday afternoon, and you go and visit, you're just jamming that in, but you do want to see them, they're important to you and to your kids, and you get there and you stay for an hour or two, and you're looking at your watch, you know you got to get back, you got things to do. And so you say, okay, we got to get going. And they say, no, can't you just stay a little longer? We so love when you're here. It's so important to us. It's the only time we get to see you. Can't you just stay? And it's tough, isn't it? It's hard to make that kind of decision because you know that if you don't stay, if you stick to the schedule that you've got figured out for that day, you'll disappoint them. You know you have other responsibilities, but it's so hard to let go of the feeling of guilt, of being manipulated by someone else's life. How could you do this to me after all I've done for you? If you really loved me, you wouldn't leave. This is important to me. You see, what happens is when people say, if you loved me, you wouldn't do this to me, they're really crossing a boundary line in our lives. They're trying to get me to influence a choice that I've already made that I know is important to me. And here's another factor. It's only when we say no to pushy people that we'll stop resenting them for intruding in our lives or making demands on our precious time. You see, the problem is when we fail to draw boundaries, we lose love and we lose limits in our lives. We lose intimacy. We lose connectedness with the people that we want to be connected to. So learn to say, you know what? I know my decision won't be popular and you won't like it, but I'm not responsible for your happiness. I'm really not. You'll have to find your happiness on your own. Now, that doesn't mean cold-hearted, never go see people. You understand what I'm saying. We just can't always be responsible for everybody else's happiness. We'll go crazy. Learn to say no at least 3 times a day. It's been said that people who have a clear sense of self-identity and worth and value say no at least 3 times a day. Why? Because it keeps us focused and crystal clear on who we are. It lets us know what fits and what doesn't fit in our lives. Investor Warren Buffett said, successful people say no to almost everything. They say no to that which doesn't allow them to have the space for what really matters to them. Rather than drowning in too much to do, saying no allows us to say yes to what's really important to us. We can say yes from a good place. We can say yes without resentment or fear. Yeah, Elon Musk only does the things that he thinks is really important. He doesn't do anything that distracts him or takes him away from his highly focused life. He says no at least 3 times a day. Learn to say no to the request, not the person. When we say no, we're not rejecting the person, but we're rejecting the invitation, and people need to know that. So make clear, I like you, I respect you, I love you, I thank you for your invitation. I just can't do it right now. It just won't work. Explain the why. Have a clear reason, an honest reason, a truth-telling reason for saying no. Be honest. Give honest answers, even if it's not popular with the person. I appreciate our relationship. I just can't make this work right now. And I know that might hurt or disappoint the other person, but bringing clarity and direction to a relationship is a good thing. It's a healthy thing in a relationship. So learn to say no to the request, not the person. Make your no a real no. I've learned over time that I simply have to say, this just isn't going to work right now. Or a phrase that I've learned to use in these contexts is, this is not going to happen. It isn't. This phrase helps me avoid caving in. See, pushy people don't give up easily. They don't draw boundary lines or want us to draw boundary lines in our lives. So it's important that I know how to say, this just isn't going to happen right now. I'm sorry, but I can't do it. I remember years and years ago, when I ran the Disney Marathon. I really wasn't in shape or training for it, but I decided to run it. And, you get up early in the morning, you get the starting line. There were 25,000 people there being led by Mickey and Minnie Mouse. It's a big deal, and I had committed to doing it, and I wanted to fulfill that commitment. And so I started out, and, everybody was going so fast that I went faster than I really should. I know I was going faster than I should. I know I shouldn't be going this fast. But I couldn't stop. I just didn't know how to say no to myself because I wanted to stay up with the momentum with everybody else. So I sort of got out of control. I let my emotions get the best of me. And boy, did I pay later. I could barely finish. I remember a woman passing me pushing a baby stroller up an interstate overpass. I should have slowed down. I should have paced myself. I should have said no to the urge to go faster, to fill myself up with speed. I didn't develop that no muscle in my life. So don't forget to make your no a real no, not only to other people, but to ourselves as well. We've got to learn to say no, a real no, to ourselves. Don't worry about the fear of rejection. I know our tendency is to think if I say no, they won't like me or include me. I mean, we were raised to be a good little boy and a good little girl, right? People pleasers. That's what we're raised to be. Good little kids. But when we say no, we're not really pleasing someone all the time. We're afraid that they won't like us anymore and we won't be invited or asked back. For years, I was invited to a New Year's Day party, and I hated going to this party. I was exhausted. I was tired. I just wanted a day to chill out and unwind. But I was afraid that they would feel so upset that I'd get rejected by them. I wouldn't be invited back to anything. I'd be cut out of their inner circle. So I would go ahead and say yes. I mean, I'm not proud about this, but that's what I would do. Finally, I learned to say no. Guess what? I got cut out of the circle. But it's great. There's a freedom of not having to go to that party every single New Year's Day and to fill that time with something I didn't really want to be doing. Learning to draw boundary lines is a good thing. It can actually lead to a better use of my time and more fulfillment and freedom in my life. Don't worry about a fear of rejection. Be prepared to miss out on something. You know, top-level executives were asked the secret to a well-balanced life, and they said it was the ability to say no. They understood that every time that they said no, they were establishing limits in their lives. Now, when they said no, it felt like a bad thing at the time because they were missing out on something good. But the really good thing that they figured out was that because they couldn't do everything, when they said no, it allowed them to be fully invested in the things that they really wanted to do to move them forward. So when you're asked to do something pretty cool, like, serve on a board or whatever, know that to do it right, it will crush your schedule. It will put added pressure on you to be a good board member, to do it right. Realize that something has to go or you have to say no. Be prepared to miss out on something that you might want to do for the sake of something of a higher value in your life. Practice advanced decision making. If we want to clear our schedule for the purposes of replenishment and rest and recharging in our lives, then we have to learn how to do advanced decision making. Advanced decision making makes the decision in advance so that when we get caught in the moment, we don't let our feelings make the decisions for us. Muhammad Ali said, I hated the training. I hated every bit of it. But I said, suffer now and I'll be a champion the rest of my life. He had made an advanced decision. I'll suffer so that I can be champion, so that his feelings didn't say, well, let's just take a break and cancel today's workout. Tom Landry, the famous football coach of the Dallas Cowboys in their Super Bowl winning year, said, my goal is to get all 22 men to do what they all don't want to do so they can all get where they all want to get. I got to get them to overcome their feelings, make some advanced decisions. That's my job, to get them to win a Super Bowl. When I was training for that marathon, that Disney marathon, as little training as I did, I kept saying to myself during those runs that are so painful when you're so exhausted, I kept saying, think how good I'll feel when I'm done. Advanced decision making. So practice advanced decision making. If I say no now, think how good I'll feel later. I won't cave in to my feelings or circumstances. And finally, saying no feels really good because it's a freeing kind of thing in our lives. Say no. Say no. Practice it. Learn to say no. No. No, I can't do that. No to the next candy bar or the next cookie when you're on a diet or trying to lose some weight, or no to using your credit card late at night online. I had a friend who said her husband was getting up in the middle of the night and getting on Amazon and making purchases because he couldn't sleep. Learn to say no, even in the middle of the night, to feelings or desires or promptings that really aren't healthy for us. It's the power of personal decision-making to say no. It feels so good. Say it. No, I'm not going to do that. I mean, if Jesus had said yes to all the things that he could have done to make all the people happy, we all would be lost. He knew how to keep his life in focus. Say no means we're growing up into adulthood. We're establishing a sense of identity. We know who we are. We know what our values are. We know what we hold as important in our lives. Saying no means putting gold coins into our account at the end of the day. Saying no means that we get to feel really good at the fruit of saying no. So James said, let your yes be a yes, and let your no be a plain no. And I pray that we can all build that kind of time-tested wisdom into our lives. Say no so that we can learn to say yes.